Good day, this is Professor Will, CBMD PhD. Today is Friday, March 27, 2020. It is 6:46 and 25 seconds p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a continuation of my lecture on Corona series. So let's get started here. Standardizing COVID-19 data analysis to aid international research efforts. Date, March 27, 2020. Source, Center for Genomic Regulation. Summary. Researchers have launched a new database to advance the international research efforts studying COVID-19. The publicly available free-to-use resource can be used by researchers from around the world to study how different variations of the virus grow, mutate, and make protein. Scientists are working around the clock to understand SARS-CoV-2, the virus causing COVID-19, so we can find its weak spots and beat it. A huge amount of scientific data is being published around the world, says a researcher at the ORG in Barcelona. However, some of the technologies we use to study SARS-CoV-2, such as nanospore RNA sequencing, are so new that the results of one paper aren't comparable to another due to the patchwork of different standards and methodologies used. We are taking all this data and analyzing it so that it meets a more universally comparable standard. This will help researchers more quickly and accurately spot the strengths and weaknesses of the coronavirus. To understand how the coronavirus grows, mutates, and replicates, scientists have to sequence the RNA of COVID-19. The RNA sequence reveals crucial information about the proteins the virus makes to invade human cells and replicate, which in turn informs governments on the infectiousness and severity of the pandemic. Traditional sequencing tools can take a long time to provide results. In recent years, sequencing data in real time has become a reality thanks to the use of nanospore sequencing technologies, revolutionizing genomics research and disease outbreak monitoring. Nanospore sequencing provides scientists and clinicians with immediate access to DNA and RNA, sequence information of any living cell in real time, enabling a rapid response against the threat of a pandemic. However, the raw data produced by nanospore sequencing is highly complex. Scientists and clinicians currently lack systematic guidelines for the reproducible analysis of the data, limiting the vast potential of the nascent technology. To standardize the analysis of publicly available SARS-CoV-2, nanospore sequencing data, researchers at the Center for Genomic Regulation, CRG, in Barcelona are using Master Reports, a computer program developed by the group of Eva Novoa and CRG Bioinformatics Unit. The software was first described last week in Frontiers in Genetics. The Internet and an increasing culture of open science data sharing and preprints have transformed the research landscape. Infrastructure that would take months to set up to research an emerging virus can now be done in just a few days owing to novel scientific computing approaches. Master reports can be executed on any Unix-compatible OS on a computer, cluster, or cloud without the need of installing any additional software or dependencies, and is freely available in GitHub. The publicly available free-to-use resource has currently analyzed 3 terabytes of SARS-CoV-2 nanospore RNA sequencing data. The CRG researchers will continue to update the resource with new data as soon as it becomes available. UK local authorities not ready for the number of deaths from COVID-19. The situation could lead to a bottleneck in burials and cremations, mortuaries filled beyond capacity, and the possibility of mass graves. Date, March 27, 2020. Source, University of Huddersfield. Summary. Even if fatality rates are at the lower end of expectations, 1% of virus victims, it is highly likely that death and bereavement services will be overwhelmed. I have drawn a wide range of data that includes the experience of previous pandemics and analyzed the readiness of a local authority in England, anonymized in the article in order to appraise the scale of the challenge. The article is titled Pandemic Continuity: Planning Will Coronavirus Test Local Authority Business Plans, and is published by the Online Journal of Emergency Management Review. The findings are based on research carried out in 2019, examining the potential impact of a flu pandemic, but the authors have updated and adapted their facts and figures so that conclusions and recommendations are of immediate relevance. They provide tables and figures that were up to date at the point of publication. Personal tragedy and loss will be unquantifiable. Wright University trial, adding, however, the focus of their paper is on how authorities will manage excess deaths. For example, burial and cremation services could be beyond capacity 4 or 5 weeks into the outbreak. Limited cemetery and body storage space will also be a major problem, with mass graves a possibility, although this would be highly controversial and would upset and anger many communities, state the authors. They have examined the role of coroners and analyzed the continuity plans drawn up by local authorities in the event of a pandemic, finding a number of flaws. In making recommendations, the authors state that both registration and bereavement services know the death toll will increase during a pandemic, but are unsure of the actual figures to plan for. Underestimating the mortality rate could reduce the effectiveness of business continuity plans, whereas knowing what to expect will focus attention on the resources required. An option would be to have an escalating business continuity plan, where the service prepares for a worst-case scenario, which can then be scaled back depending on the anticipated mortality rate. Recommendations include the possibility of ring-fencing employees, so that during periods of severe staff shortfalls, their availability will be guaranteed. Technological innovations could include an online death registration service that would speed up the process, although with insufficient safeguards, it could be open to misuse. The authors conclude the focus has been on the operational implications for a local authority service, but the issues this paper raises are primarily about people and how we as a society treat our citizens in life and in death. In a pandemic situation, there is likely to be a necessary change to the business as usual, death and bereavement management services. How humanely these are managed is hugely important for those affected at the time of crisis, and the humanity of the government's response will reflect the nature and values of our society and will be judged accordingly. Good day, this is Professor Will, CBMD PhD on infectious disease and microbiology. Hope you enjoyed listening and have a great day.